Welcome back to the Ride and Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You're back at the parking lot. The stoke is high. Everyone's talking about the trails, jumps, drops, steeps, tech, progression. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Danny, I am doing fantastic. It's been a great week. We got some rain. Didn't get much riding in, but how are you doing?
I am doing well as well. And no rain here in the desert. It is sunny and beautiful every day. You go through the summer of hell and then the winter of gloriousness. And This is a great time of year to come. This is absolutely the time of year to come. So,
oh man, I wish I was there, bro.
Me too. All right, well, let's get into it. We miss each other, everybody, but
yes, we do.
The Paisans will be riding again together soon enough. It's happening. It's happening.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Reviewing Ride and Laugh podcast number 41, single speed mountain bike can jump, and mountain bike enduro course prep at Halls. And of course, that was the podcast we talked about you taking your single speed to the Phoenixville Bike Park and then also to Skyline.
Oh, yeah.
And really kind of locking in on jumping a hardtail, but also the old Geo and what that felt like. And I thought that was just fascinating, amazing stuff. And then I rode with listener Jeff Jackson and a whole bunch of his buddies, and those guys were all cool. And they were prepping for the enduro race at Halls, which goes through Double Black Tech Trail Boulder Dash. And so the comments from that were fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for commenting. And Rob, our buddy on an e-bike who you spent time with, your Patreon member who you spent time with at Phoenixville Bike Park. And he wrote, I really appreciate all the help you gave me that day, Sage. I have watched countless jump videos telling me how to jump, but it just never clicked. I guess sometimes it takes a friend at the park to break it down and force you to make the needed adjustments. Jumping feels so much more natural now. Must keep practicing. So,
yo, man,
he's got the
ain't
bug.
That the truth? That is the truth, Danny. I can't tell you how many times we've been at Mount Penn or wherever. I mean, pick a spot, and I'm struggling, and you can easily see what the problem is because you're right there. And you're just like, oh, try this. Or did you notice that you're doing this? And it's like, it's frustrating as the rider when you think you're doing something, but having someone else there to be like, nah, you're actually not, as high or as low as you think you are. Or, I think you had made the comment when you're at the desert trails, like you thought you were going really fast. And then, Ella showed you the video and you're like, oh, actually, that was pretty slow.
Why am I so scared? I'm barely moving. Of course, I'm not clearing these jumps. Can't clear jumps on a track stand.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Rob, thank you. That was awesome. I love paying that forward. We've all been there, and Danny's helped me countless numbers of times on those jumps and all kinds of features. So yeah, good stuff.
It's really interesting, the synchronicities of mountain biking life. It's so easy sometimes for you to look at another rider, or, a friend or who a riding buddy and just be like, yo, you're actually like pretty far back. You're too far back off on the bike, or you're launching off of that lip too soon, and it's pretty easy to see it sometimes.
Yeah.
And in life, sometimes you're just helping a friend through a difficult period. And sometimes just being outside of that emotional turmoil. Yeah. It's just like, hey, have you thought about it this way? And that's right. I found that to be the case, like so much just in life, just having perspective of someone who's not involved, or sometimes me not being involved and being able to help someone.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, too? Just in terms of mountain biking, there's so many things, right? It's not just the physical of like doing this thing, but there's also like all this that's happening upstairs, and to get everything right at one time is really, really tough. So let's all have a little bit of grace, if we're struggling on something in life, we're on the mountain bike, grace.
Yes, absolutely. Grace for ourselves. And sometimes just think that word, just like, I'm just gonna give myself grace here. And we're overthinking. And overthinking on the bike is never good. If you're riding intuitively and dynamically and intentionally and you're in the flow, you're probably not thinking too much.
I got to tell you, Danny, I had a moment of no grace today. I was on the bottom of No Joke, where it has the two skinnies to get up on the thing. And I'm shooting the video for the fat bike. So I'm like, oh, let me go try this line. I fell off at the highest point of the second skinny, and it got me so angry that you ever go into a feature and you're just angry, like you want to get it, and it caused me to like screw up 3 more times, and finally I just was like, grace, and I just let it all go, and I was like, dude, you know how to do this. I took a timeout. I put myself into timeout, and then I was able to do it. But the funny thing was, the more I struggled, it started to build on itself. We talk about stacking wins, but this was like, did it wrong and then kept doing it wrong and couldn't figure it out. It was just getting me more angry. And it was just like the worst way to ride, man. It was the worst way to ride.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting that pressure on yourself because you've done it before so many times and you know that you can do it. And then suddenly you're struggling. And then it's like, I should not be struggling. I should not be struggling here.
Right.
Yeah. So Rob sent the email or messaged on YouTube thanking you for your help with jumping. And then on the flip side, we have a message from Ryan, who's one of the expert level jumpers that we see at Phoenixville Bike Park.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I appreciate you using clips of me. It's cool to see, and how cool it is to see your progression. And he says, I'm always down to help anyone. And there's a great community overall at Phoenixville Bike Park. So like that, here's someone that's on the other side. Yeah, totally. And he's amazing. But how cool is that you are getting instruction?
Yeah, man. He's been such a great sounding board, every time I'm there, because he's doing what I want to do. Like, I want to get there on the flats with the dirt jumper. And it's just so invaluable to just be able to turn around and be like, hey, dude, how are you doing this? And he'll just sit there and he'll talk about it. He's good enough that he can just talk about, here's what I'm doing. I'm dipping here. I'm compressing here. I'm pulling up here, and try this. And it's like, oh man, that's the stuff where it's like, you watch it on the video. This is what Rob was saying. Like, he's watching countless numbers of video, but then trying to apply that on your own is ridiculous. When you have a Ryan that's like, no, I just watched you and you thought you were doing it right and you're not. It's like, that's what we're talking about. And the Phoenixville Bike Park and places like the Phoenixville Bike Park, that's where it's at. If you're trying to work on something like jumping, go to a place where there's going to be lots of people that can give you advice. It's amazing, Danny.
Yeah. What goes around comes around. But yeah, it's just awesome. Mountain biking's awesome. It's such a cool sport, to go and do something fun and then be able to share it with other people. Yeah. So Shelly, who's the leader of the fire team and great listener, great person. And Shelly was giving me a tip, hearing about my girls riding and getting into riding. And she said, play games with your girls to build skills, follow the leader, bike soccer, bike limbo, and circle of death.
Whoa.
And then she said, I'm sure someone has a better name for that one. So I'm very curious what the circle of death one is.
Circle of death. Hey, kids.
Yeah. We're going to play Doom and Gloom. Everyone gather around. Yeah. So, but it's a great idea, and she's like, don't let them know that it's a skill session. Just play games. And then, look, Shelly's raised a couple of shredders, like straight up shredders.
Oh, man.
So
yeah.
I trust her advice, so Ride Life One Gmail, YouTube comments, Circle of Death. What is it? No, but, if you have kids, like, have you used any of those techniques and that sort of thing? So I'll have to contact Shelly to find out, what some of those are, or maybe just look on YouTube. And we bought one of those, ramps that you can just, put on the street. Yeah. So we bought a ramp and we've been scouting in the neighborhood, where a good landing is.
Yeah.
But I think we're just going to set it up. Hopefully this weekend, we're just going to set it up in the street, and it's kind of, you can set it up so it's just a roll, where you can and then you can increase the height of it so that it's actually, starting to send you.
What? Cool.
Yeah.
Yo, that sounds awesome, man. Can you buy the landing, or is it just the kicker?
Well, you can, but now you're spending a lot more money.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets pretty expensive. The good ramps are actually pretty expensive already. So this is actually something I was kind of curious. What's everyone doing on Black Friday? what gear are we treating ourselves to on Black Friday? I've already bought myself a pair of shoes. I bought myself a ramp. I bought myself a new pair of sunglasses. I got a new helmet. So,
Hey now.
yeah, everything's on sale, and just a couple things that I needed. It was like, oh, now's the time to buy it. It just seems like so. Ride and Life 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. What are you getting yourself on Black Friday or for the holidays? And we're coming into Thanksgiving is tomorrow. So by the time everyone's listening to this, we'll have passed Thanksgiving. And Sage and I talked about doing a Thanksgiving podcast that would be based on gratitude. Yeah. But the whole podcast is based on gratitude. It was like, what are we going
right.
to we're just going to do highlights of other gratitudes that we've already.
Right. Yeah.
And then commenting on a past episode, which was Hello E-Bikes, Goodbye Fitness.
Yeah.
We had Johnny Yu at Mountain Bike Q&A. And Johnny's got a YouTube channel. He does live interviews with mountain bike influencers and mountain bike people. And you can also get his the interviews on podcasts, on all the podcast players. So check those out. Johnny's hilarious. And he supports our channel, which is great. And but he said, I just got an e-bike and I plan on keeping the analog because he likes the fitness part, even though I've never been fit. But I'm an old man. I just want to get out and have fun. More fun, less suck, I like to say. And another note, love these pods. You two are the best. And you kids crack me up. And I just listened to Johnny's most recent podcast. So I know by the time I got to the podcast players a little bit later, but he just had a birthday. So happy birthday, Johnny.
Happy birthday, Johnny.
Thanks for the support, and I can't wait to hear about the e-bike adventures.
I know, man. It's so awesome. He's going to love it, dude. He's going to absolutely love it.
Totally. I think so. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone not liking it. So, but no. Thanks for the support, Johnny. And yeah, good luck on the e-bike. It's going to be fun to hear about. So, all right. And this is the part of the podcast where we thank everyone. We have gratitude for our listeners. As always, please rate and subscribe on your podcast player and on YouTube, and YouTube comments help, and tell your friends and support the pod. We appreciate it.
Yes. Spread the word.
Oh, and on Apple, you can leave an actual review. So if you want to leave a review on Apple, we scan those and we read the good ones. So thank you. However you going to want to support the podcast. We've had some people going above and beyond supporting the podcast lately, and it's just it's really awesome.
Yeah, it is.
All right, let's get into our rides. Sage, what do you want to talk about first? You had a couple of rides.
Yeah, I ended up going to the Phoenixville Bike Park again on Sunday. In the hopes of jumping the dirt jumper, but unfortunately, because we had some rain, I think it was like 2 days before, there were a few soft spots. So, that dirt jumper that I'm using, it has street tires, and it made me a little bit weary about taking out. So I only got a few runs on the dirt jumper. Thankfully, I had my fat bike, so ended up hitting the fat bike.
Spots.
Yes, it really was. I was fixing all the divots as I was going around it. So that was cool. And on today, I took the fat bike out to Mount Penn because I wanted to try out the new Cushcore inserts that I put in the back tire. And my goodness, totally worth it, Danny. I think I ran the PSI around 9 or 10 in the back, which is really low for me. I mean, I don't know what other people are running. You were running it higher than that?
No, lower.
I mean, lower than that? Yeah.
Yes. My fat bike was like 70 or 80. It was really wide. My rim was much wider than your rim. And you were right to go with the less wide rim. It makes it more versatile. But, I had invested in, I just got those. It was before I had suspension on it. And so I'd gotten like the widest rim, and that was my suspension. And then once, I wasn't going to order different rims once I had suspension. So mine was really, really fast. So maybe that changes how much PSI I have in it also. But so you weren't worrying about getting it flat. Did you feel the Cushcore? Did you notice it?
No, I didn't feel the Cushcore, but what I felt was less bouncing, which was just such a treat. It was such a treat to be able to just roll through this stuff. And, yes, I was still worried, because I'm still experimenting, but, maybe I will try and go lower than 9 PSI. Maybe I'll try 8 and see how that goes. I don't want to take it so far that something does happen. So it's going to be a slow process. But my goodness, like I went on Sam Malone and the traction was just, it basically stuck to the rock. You know, I could have came to a complete stop on this slab and just, you know, that's how much rubber is making contact.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So do you don't get more nervous that it's a hardtail? I know that you've done a lot of this stuff on your single speed even.
Yeah.
But you don't feel like you get bounced offline or anything like that?
No, man, the Geo on that fat bike is way better than the single speed, you know, and I was looking at the specs and the specs are like, I think it's like 68 degree on the head angle, but that's if you're running a standard fork. You and I, we put Blutos on that. And when you put the Bluto fork on there, which is a suspension fork, that raises the front end up. And so that changes the whole angle. I think it's at like 67 degrees at least. I mean, it feels like an aggressive hardtail. It really does. Yeah,
that's cool. That's very cool. The aggressive hardtails now are like 65, but
oh my gosh,
67 is good.
Yeah.
67 is good for sure. Yeah. And that thing climbs really well. And, you know, it sounds like you found a real sweet spot there. I guess the question would be like on the huck to flats, if you go too low on the PSI and you land a little bit back wheel heavy, it's a hardtail. You know, like so at what PSI are you going to just feel like comfortable to just be able to do everything that you want to do?
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. And that's, I don't want to find out the wrong way, which is why I'm just kind of doing this slowly.
If you're enjoying it. Yeah. If you're having fun, then great. That's perfect.
Exactly.
You know, why push it? I mean, this can get better and better and, you know, but it's different on a fat bike too, where I think on regular tires, the lower the PSI you can go, the better the ride, the performance. Because if you go too low, you're going to know it. You know, not only are you going to get rim dings, but you're like, it's not going to ride well.
Yeah. You know what else was interesting, Danny, is I took it to Skyline and man, I kind of knew this thing would be able to jump because I did take it to the Phoenixville Bike Park, but the jumps on Skyline are way bigger. Like they're taller and they're longer.
Oh, this is the first time you went to Skyline with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to tell you, this thing, you would have thought there was helium in those tires. I mean, it just took off. It was so much fun. It was really, really good time.
Oh, that's really cool. Were you able to do moves in the air and make shapes? Because you said at Phoenixville, you felt like the gravity of the tires was pulling you down.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a couple runs. Yeah. It took me a couple runs to get used to it. But man, once you get a feeling for that pull, man, it really does send, man. It really does. I'm really tempted to bring the dirt jumper to Skyline. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't know. What do you think?
Excuse me.
Okay.
Next subject, I guess. I'm sorry, my yawn wasn't telling enough. I'm 2 hours behind you, and I'm the one yawning. But you drink coffee all day, and I don't drink coffee all day.
That I do.
Jumping the fat bike. Oh, so you just did the 5 jumps on the fat bike. You didn't do all of Skyline.
No, and that's what I would do with the dirt jumper. Like if I brought the dirt jumper, it would just be to session the 5. I don't know where I'd park. The problem is the climb up is going to really suck because, as you said, it's just one gear.
Walk. It's a walk.
You might have to walk. And the terrain isn't as smooth as the Phoenixville Bike Park.
Yeah.
But man, I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to be able to jump the dirt jumper there.
Do you think you could clear the jumps? The Skyline is bike park quality and height jumps. They're very, very big jumps. You think you could? You think you could clear that on the dirt jumper?
Why not? Right? Why not? Like, if I'm clearing it on the single speed, if I'm clearing it on the fat bike, why not? It might take a couple runs.
That's my answer. Is like, you were like, do you think that's a bad idea? I would have thought taking the single speed there is a terrible idea. You didn't consult me beforehand. I just saw a video of it. I was like, holy crap. It's a terrible idea. But there you were, like flying at Phoenixville and at that Mount Penn, flying through the air on the single speed on that old Geo. So yeah, I think you could do anything. I absolutely think you could do anything.
Yeah.
I wonder if jumping a dirt jumper on mountain bike jumps is easier than jumping a dirt jumper on dirt jumps. Do you know what I mean? BMX style jumps.
Yeah, I do. Those scare me. Like I would much rather take the dirt jumper to a mountain bike jump than to a BMX jump. I'm going to need some more lessons from Ryan before I attempt a BMX style jump.
Yeah. Is he teaching you like to stand up into the jump and that I know at one point you were practicing pulling your handlebars to your hips, but it wasn't in the motion of like standing up. It was just like, just like you're getting in the air and then like pulling the handlebars to your hips, and it didn't look right.
Yeah.
But is he teaching you that like how to stand into it so that you launch up higher?
That's going to be my next thing that I ask him is like, how is he doing that? And unfortunately, the Phoenixville Bike Park, I think, is closed at this point for the season. But come spring, Ryan and I, we're going to get it. Yeah.
You got a lot of time to visualize clearing those jumps with steez and height. So much of that dirt jumping is just the lips on those steep jumps and committing to getting up into the air. It's just a different technique than mountain bike jumps. So really I took my kids to desert trails and we had a nice time. Nothing earth shaking or groundbreaking, but a nice day on bikes. And there's like a Velo Solutions pump track that's only about 15 minutes from here. I just found out Jeff Jackson sent me a text like, have you checked this place out yet? So that's our next stop. Yeah. And I was over at Action Sports, one of the bike shops here, that those guys are awesome. And they were actually saying that you can like, they like the pump track more, that the desert trails, those jumps are even the beginner line. They're just so technical because they're so steep. The takeoffs are so steep and the landings are so steep. And when I was at Desert Trail, so after I was there with the kids, a couple days later, I went back by myself and I brought both of my bikes. I brought my mountain bike and I brought my dirt jumper. And I just wanted to see, like, because I wasn't really getting close on my dirt jumper. A little bit better, but not where I wanted to be. So my plan was to ride the mountain bike and start clearing the jumps and then get on like you did on the fat bike, and you did the fat bike and then you went to the dirt jumper. So I was like, all right, let me take my Banshee, which is my aggressive hardtail. Let me get comfortable clearing the jumps on that. And then I'll take the dirt jumper out. But it just took me a lot longer than I expected on the Banshee to start clearing the jumps. And the Banshee is really long and these jumps are like not that big, but they're really, really steep. And then the jump is steep, the takeoff is steep, and the landing is steep. It took me longer than I expected, but I did start to get it, and it felt really good. Felt really good. Yeah. So then I took the dirt jumper out, and I was like, let me see if I can just like translate this. And no, I couldn't. It didn't just translate right away. It just it feels so different. That's why I'm so curious about that 27.5. Like, I'm not buying another bike. I'm not getting the 27.5. I'm just curious. I have a great dirt jumper. It's fantastic. I want to learn how to jump on that thing. And I was talking to the guys at Action, and I was talking to Brian, who's one of the managers there, and he's like he has that BMX background and that dirt jumper background. And I was like, so do you think that learning how to jump on a dirt jumper will translate to mountain bike skills? And he was like, hands down, yes.
Oh, there you go. There you go, man. Hey,
it's just hard.
I got a question for you. So I was looking at the footage that you sent, and you're right. That beginner line, those tables are really awkward looking. Like both the takeoff and landing, they're shaped the same way. It almost looks like I don't know how to. It looks really awkward.
Like a
usually
skate
the
park.
landing.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, usually a jump has a steep takeoff, then the landing is like much more mellow. Yes. You could ride this thing forward or backwards. It's the same lip.
I don't know why they designed it for skateboards. I haven't seen a single person on a skateboard there. It's all bikes. Yeah, it's really steep. It's a really steep takeoff, and then it's an equally steep landing. And I guess you could go to flat, which I have a little bit, and on the mountain bike, it's not really a big deal. On the dirt jumper, I don't love the idea of it, but I probably could. It's just nerve-wracking. I'm just having a hard time letting go of the brakes. And how much of it is letting go of the brakes and how much of it is pushing into that jump? I think on the mountain bike, I can let go of the brakes and I can momentum over the whole jump.
Yeah.
And so once I was able to let go of the brakes, I started clearing everything. I even had some runs where I let go of the brakes and I did not clear it. So like if you suck up those jumps, you will not clear it. You still have to boost a little bit. But on the dirt jumper, like you really have to boost. And you feel it. As soon as I boost, I feel it, but I don't have that like muscle memory of boosting, getting up in the air, arcing the handlebars down the way that I want to.
Yeah.
You know,
here's a really,
what do you recommend?
Well, here's a crazy thing. Would the jumps on the intermediate line actually be better? Because they're bigger. Here's the thing that the problem is on the beginner line, they're really not tall. Like the jumps aren't that tall. And it's like an awkward space. So as your front wheel's coming off of that, your back wheel's barely on it. Like I'm wondering if the jump is too small. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like a kicker. Do you think the intermediate line with the bigger jumps would actually be better on the dirt jumper?
So when I was there by myself and I was sessioning, I met Luke, who was on a dirt jumper.
Yeah.
And I met Dan, who was on a full suspension bike, and Dan was really comfortable there. He had been there a bunch of times, and he was saying that the intermediate line he thinks is actually easier than the beginner line because of that very thing that you were just saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, and he sent the wooden kickers at the bottom of the intermediate line. I have video of him doing that. Luke started on the beginner line. He had this dirt jumper with really skinny tires, like race tires.
Yeah.
And he's a mountain biker. I think Dan said he had some sort of BMX background. They both had like BMX backgrounds or moto. They definitely both had moto backgrounds. Like they were comfortable in the air. And Luke was just like, he's like, oh, I'm just learning how to do these lippy jumps. But he sounds like he sends it big time at the bike parks.
Okay.
On mountain bikes. And by the end of the day, first of all, he was on a single speed dirt jumper and he was running way more laps than either Dan or I. Like, talk about fit. I mean, he was cranking out laps, and like usually get to the top, you have to take a little break, a little breather. This guy he was seriously fit. It was very cool. And by the end of the day, like he did several run ups on those wooden jumps at the end, and then he was clearing them. But they were saying that the beginner line is really technical. It's really tight.
So both of them said that.
Yes. Now the intermediate line has it's got a double in it. It's also really tight. Like the turns come up on you really fast.
Yeah.
The Banshee, my big, long, aggressive hardtail, felt big on intermediate line as well.
Yeah. And
those wooden jumps are sendy, man. Like I'm not ready for those. I don't think. Don't you think I should be like clearing the beginner line before I send those wooden jumps?
Here's the crazy thing. No, I don't. I really don't. Yeah. However, those jumps, they're not like the Phoenixville Bike Park. There is a gap.
Yes.
But the reality is you'd have to really work to fall into that gap. Like you'd really have to try to fall into that gap. If you were following somebody, I don't know, Danny, I absolutely think that you could do it. And I think that I would keep going at it with the Banshee. I think that's maybe is your full suspension shorter than your Banshee?
I don't know.
What's the shortest bike you have?
Besides the dirt jumper?
And the BMX? Yes, besides
How many bikes do you have, dude? It's probably the single speed, but I'm not taking the single speed. My
No.
Yeah. It would be my full suspension or my aggressive hardtail. But the aggressive hardtail just makes more sense. Even if it's a little bit longer, I think it makes more sense at that kind of place to jump a hardtail.
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I want the squish if I'm casing stuff. I don't know.
I would think you would want the squish, especially if you're going to try the big wooden ramp jumps. It's the bike that you're more comfortable riding, one. And two, if it's a little bit shorter, it's going to allow you to get a little bit more aggressive in those turns. The problem I imagine for you is going to be the turns. Now, again, I was watching the videos that you sent. They are really tight and you have to commit to not braking. Like you have to, if you want to get the most out of those doubles, which I think the one was like a right-hand turn into a double into another left-hander.
Yeah.
If you're touching brake, you ain't making it. If you touch brake, you are not making it.
It's technical. It's a technical place. It's really interesting. It's really, really an interesting place. I'm like kind of on the fence of a lot of people I talk to are like, yeah, it's not the best place for mountain bikers. It's so hard. It's so technical. Yeah. So I'm curious to see what the pump track is like. I know Brian from Action Ride Shop was saying that if you want to practice jumping on a dirt jumper, the Velo Solutions pump track has several transfer spots where you can. I don't know that I'll see those on my own, but he said he's there every Monday evening. But I'd be curious to see someone, oh, here's a spot where you could practice jumping also. I don't know. I'm going to have to check it out. Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments, pump track. Who has access to a Velo Solutions pump track and these lippy jumps, versus mountain bike jumps? What's your experience on those? And should I be riding a dirt jumper exclusively and just keep practicing that? Or should I be practicing on the mountain bike and getting more comfortable and then switching to the dirt jumper? I'm not sure.
I don't find transfers to be as easy.
Well, what do you mean by transfers?
I don't know what they're going to look like at Velo Solutions, but when I think of a transfer at a pump track, I'm not picturing anything lippy. I'm picturing it's going to be hump to hump. And for you to
you're talking about skipping a jumping over one of the humps to land on
hump to hump. You're not skipping a hump. You're hump to hump. Oh, this sounds terrible.
So the hump to hump is the place to do the hump.
The Humpty dance.
That's a 90s reference for our older listeners. Most people aren't going to understand. But okay. So here we go with the humps again. I thought you meant with the transfer. I thought you meant like jumping from one line to another line, transferring from one portion of the pump track to another portion by jumping.
Yeah. Yes. Oftentimes that's what that means. But when you're doing that on a pump track, it's not a jump. It is a hump. So you're going from one hump to another hump on a different line.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be like a kicker is what I'm saying. So you're going to have to put a lot of input to make that transfer, I think. And now I could be totally wrong. I mean, when you get to the Velo Solutions, take some video and let's see what that means. But I don't know that's going to be easier.
Yeah. What's scary about that is that that's essentially a gap jump. Like if you don't clear it, if you front case, jumping from one hump to the other hump, that's
terrible.
Yeah. And it's asphalt, So.
Yeah. Listen, how many times did we case the lower boom sauce? I mean, those humps were big. They were, they're almost bike tallness, right? Like if you put your bike against it, I think they would be about your bike height. I remember casing those and landing in the middle with the bottom bracket. It was brutal. I actually prefer casing the Phoenixville bike park style landings. I don't know. There's just something different about those kinds of jumps. It's about timing. Maybe that's what it is. It's about timing, because you're going whoop, whoop, whoop,
Yeah.
I'm making that sound. People can't see the visual there, but
that's
know what I'm
the
saying.
sound that Sage makes when humping. Go ahead, Sage.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Ladies, keep your pants on, okay? This is a family program.
Oh, jeez.
That's the sound of Trail Sage riding the humps. Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm single.
There's more where that came from. You play your cards right, listener. There's more where that came from. Ride Life 1 at Gmail.
Oh my.
No, not the YouTube comments. Okay.
No. I have
Something comments on the
thing.
Gmail only. Yes.
I have another thing that might help you. And when you sent your dirt jumper pics, I was looking at your dirt jumper versus the Infinity dirt jumper, which is the one that Brian lent me. He's got an extraordinary rise on his bar. And for the newer riders that don't know what a rise is. So when you buy handlebars, you have two two things that they're going to list. There's going to be a back sweep and there's going to be a rise. The back sweep is how much the bars curve back toward you, and the rise is how much the bars come up from the stems. And Brian's dirt jumper, the rise on it is like 6 inches. It's insane how much higher those bars come up. I actually, when he took the bike out of the van, I was like, Brian, I said, do you mind if I change these bars out? And he's like, no. He's like, absolutely, you could change the bars out. But he's like, I like these bars because they make me feel more stable, like I'm on the mountain bike. And he's like, before you change them, try them. And I was like, okay, I'll try them. He was 100% right. It feels so good. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course he was. Yeah. Have you seen the goofy stems? And I think
yes, I was just going to bring that up.
Yes. That's basically what this thing is.
There's a guy who makes it. Oh man, I can't remember his name. There's a guy who like custom made. Yeah, it is funky looking, but it raises the handlebar way up high, and he swears that this makes you like an amazing. It turns the mountain bike into like an amazingly capable downhill machine, and he says it doesn't take away from the climbing either. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe next episode I'll mention it, because what this guy's doing is really cool, and he custom made this thing. He had this theory. I don't know if he's got an engineering background, but Seth at Burn Peak tested it and liked it. And so, I mean, I've seen lots of videos where people have ridden it and liked it. And I've heard that that's the next thing in geometry, is getting the handlebars up higher.
Wow.
That's the next step in progression.
Yeah.
Of course, Brian on a bike was like, I've known about this for 18 years.
Right. Well, this looks way more attractive than a super long stem. These are basically normal stem, and then these things come up like crazy amounts. I'll send you a picture again, Danny, but you know what? Handlebars is not a very expensive investment. I don't think these are carbon.
Yeah.
So it might be worth
it's
a
dirt
shot.
Jumper. No, that's a really interesting point. RideandLaugh1 at Gmail, YouTube comments, handlebar height. Is that something that you're messing with on your mountain bike? Has anyone messed with that on their dirt jumper? Think about BMX bikes, right? They got those things are up pretty tall.
Right. And you were saying that bike feels small for you, maybe getting higher, maybe raising that up will make you feel a little bit more like a mountain bike.
It's Black Friday. It's Black Friday.
Black cornucopia of bike things.
Amazon's just like making steady deliveries. Just like, come on in, add it to the pile. Yes. I got some good stuff. I'm pretty excited. All right, that's great. We talked more and more about dirt jumpers. RideandLaugh1 Gmail, YouTube comments. Let us know anything, any comments, or if you're thinking about getting a dirt jumper, or if you've tried one, if you have a place to ride them. That's been kind of like our thing lately. It's been like the last 3 episodes we've talked about it a lot, and I think we're going to continue to, because I'm going to continue to ride it out here, and I'm just curious how to unlock that skill. It just seems like it just takes so much repetition. It's a little intimidating how much time it takes to learn how to do that, for it to like start to click. But I'm looking forward to that moment. We're unlimited. Anything's possible. This 48-year-old, almost 50-year-old can learn how to do it. So anyone can.
Absolutely. You had another ride, Danny.
I did. Yes. I had a ride this morning that was with Jeff and Joe. So Jeff is one of Jeff Jackson, MTB. That day I did the enduro race lines. Jeff was there. He was in that group, and a couple of those guys have reached out and, offered to, show me around, and which is awesome. Thank you, fellas.
Yeah.
And so I was actually able to ride with Jeff this morning, and he said, how about we do National Trail? And he says, it might be busy with the holiday coming up and everything like that. Why don't you just meet at my house? Because I live right next to South Mountain. And he sends me his address, and he's like, he lives literally right next to South Mountain. Like I parked at his house.
Oh man.
I met his neighbor came with us, who lives like across the street, Joe, awesome dude.
That's awesome.
And we rode right onto the mountain, like not like through a bunch of neighborhoods and, like meandering our way to, no. Like at the end of their street is South Mountain. I was just like, guys, how did you know? Like, did you buy this property knowing that you wanted to mountain bike there? And they were like, Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. And they're talking about the guys in their neighborhood and girls. There's a pivot factory racer, a woman that said is like, incredible. All these people that live in their neighborhood, and they're all shredders. They're all like crazy fast. They're riding, and South Mountain is no joke. I mean, there are some intermediate and beginner trails there. I don't know how much beginner there is. But these guys, like, what a blessing. And so, but talk about guys that know the lines, and talk about guys that give a tour, like, and there's so much there. There's so much there. So I think they have a hard time going other places, because why load the car up when you had that in your backyard? I mean, it was just awesome. So these guys, they're like, what do you want to do? Because we ride here all the time. And they said, do you want to climb up National, or do you want to climb up Mormon? I said, well, I never climbed up National. Maybe I did once. I think when I first got out here, I rented a bike and I climbed up National, and I walked like, 90% of it. And I was like, well, that seems to be the wrong way. And then I found that you could climb Mormon.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, you don't climb National? Like, well, let's do that then. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Oh boy.
And it was awesome, dude. There are so many like just ridiculously technical sections. It's a lot of tech climbing, but then there's like all these like, we just stopped and sessioned all these really hard technical climbs. And some of them, one of the really hard ones, I got first try. I was pretty stoked on that. That was the first one.
Yeah.
And I got it right away. I mean, they showed me the line, so it was really, really helpful to see like exactly where to go. And I was able to put my tires there and do it. So that was cool. Maybe I set the bar a little high. They were like, whoa, this guy. I was like, I want to pump the brakes on being impressed. But they were awesome, and they were showing me the lines. I mean, if I had to go and figure out these lines on my own, it would have taken me 3 weeks of like, oh, it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So really cool to be able to see the line and then attack it. And both Jeff and Joe, awesome climbers. They both got and didn't get their own couple sections, but they cleared almost everything. Joe, I think, said that he's cleared everything like all the way up to really far. Just really, really impressive, and it was really fun. And we just talked about the e-bikes, hello e-bikes, goodbye fitness episode.
Yes.
Neither of these guys own e-bikes. They're out there on their analog bike. They bought XC bikes. They have shorter travel bikes for days that they don't want to climb all the way up into the chunk and the gnar. So they're ripping like laps on some of the easier trails on their XC bikes.
Yeah.
Or they're taking out their big travel mountain bikes. And so we climbed up National, and then essentially we did a little portion of this trail called Old Man, and we're just ripping it. Again, seeing lines I hadn't seen before, just following someone, so much more helpful. There's things that I thought I could drop, but I hadn't before, and I did do that.
Oh yeah,
really, really cool. Just and they they ride there all the time, and they gave me like 18 different options. Like when we got to the turnaround point, it was like we could do this or this, or we could go down this and this, and then we could do this or this, and I was like, well, I'm just here, with you guys, like whatever you guys want to do. And they're like, no, you have to tell us, because we're here all the time. So what sounds good? I was like, oh, you're like, take me this. So I don't ever go down Mormon. So then we went up. We instead of going all the way back National, we actually went the reverse of what I usually do.
Yeah, and
that was cool. It's an awesome place. They were awesome dudes. They were amazing riders. And I'll tell you what, I got this Pivot Firebird last year, and it's a big travel bike. I think it's 170, 165. Oh wow! And these guys are on big travel bikes. Jeff was on a Yeti SB 150, which is a big travel bike, and Joe was on a Santa Cruz Mega Tower, which I think is 170, 165. Like, if you want to like rock and roll in this chunder and this chunk and send some of these drops and be able to go fast down these ledges, the enduro bike's where it's at. So, but it's still so much climbing. So like the amount of strength you need to haul around these enduro bikes, but then it's totally worth it for all the downhills. There's so much gnar here. But I was saying to my wife, I was like, well, I'm so glad I had the Firebird. Like it is the right tool. It is the right weapon for like consistent Arizona riding.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's enduro bike, but that thing climbs really well. You had it here. Yeah, I was impressed at how well you were climbing that thing, and you kept saying it. And I know that those guys were fast because I checked out your Strava, and you had PRs and seconds and thirds all over that ride, man. You were absolutely crushing it. So those guys must have been putting down some good lines. It's always such a treat to follow the locals, you know, and to get to see all that. So what stood out to you the most in terms of the alt lines? Because when I get to South Mountain, baby, I'm ready. I want to hit some of this stuff.
I would say what stood out to me the most today was climbing national and actually learning what some of those lines are.
Yeah.
That was what stood out to me the most today, as we didn't do too many alt lines coming back on national. But Jeff showed me one that I had a question about, where you get up onto like this big rock and then you drop it. So, and there's video of that. So he did that really smoothly, and that looks pretty technical. He said some guys are gapping onto it, which is mind blowing. He showed me a few other things that, like, he showed me a road gap that I didn't know existed. That was crazy. But on the downhill, we didn't do too many alt lines. Once we started flowing, there was a couple of drops that I didn't know you could drop. I've been rolling them, you know, and a couple of lines where there were drops. So yeah, good fun stuff. But we didn't like session the alt lines on the downhill portion. And I feel like some of that stuff might be on that second national part.
I mean, that ride looked freaking awesome, man. I can't wait to get out there with you, brother. Yeah.
These guys will test us. They will test our mettle for sure. Yeah. Man, I know they're so fast too. Like, you know, it's very, I told them, I was like, first of all, if you want to be in the podcast and you want to be on the camera, you got to slow down a little bit. Like, you know, if you don't want to do that, this is totally fine. Just stop at some intersections or something, you know, let me catch up. So, you know, but they're locals and they're fast riders.
Yeah. No e-bikes. Unbelievable.
Yeah. No e-bikes. Yeah. It blew me away. Like, you know, climbing is alive and well out here, at least. I mean, we were sessioning climbs. I would say that was mostly what we did today. We spent most of our time sessioning technical climbs, and it was so fun. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such an acquired taste, Danny, but you and I grew up on that. Like, we always loved a good technical climb, and we would session that. I'm glad to see that you're right. It's still alive and well, man. I think that's the part maybe that gets me worried about getting an e-bike. And we've heard people say that, you know, the technical climbs are still technical. You're just doing them faster, and it's technical in a different way. I'd like to feel what that feels like, you know, but for me, there's nothing like that, you know, on the analog bike when you wax a good technical climb that you know, oh man, just feels so good.
We were talking about this today I was talking about this with Jeff and Joe. There's a couple spots that, you know, I was like, have you guys made this climb? Have you made this climb? You know, and I wonder if the e-bike would get me in trouble, because now I might be trying things that are so steep that if you don't make it, you're going to fall over backwards. You know what I mean? There's a couple spots where I'm like, but could you do that on the e-bike and then figure out the power and then be able to take it to your analog bike? Kind of like jumping on your mountain bike and then going to your dirt jumper. Could I climb some of these like almost impossible looking climbs that everyone's got a story? I've seen a guy do that. I saw a guy do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's possible.
Right. Yeah.
So
we got a comment like that. That somebody was using the e-bike. Right. To test if they could do it on the analog. They knew if they could get it on the e-bike that it might be possible to do on the analog bike. So yeah. Absolutely.
Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments, e-bikers. How much are you challenging yourselves on the climbs? Are you clearing climbs that you haven't done before? Or does that translate to your analog bike? Have you gotten in trouble climbing on the e-bike? Have you bitten off more than you can chew? You know, where now you got a 50-pound bike that's like starting to tip over backwards. You would definitely want to get really comfortable, really practice on the e-bike. When I went into Action Ride Shop, which is a great bike shop here in the Phoenix area, and we ordered my daughter Ella a new bike because she's been on the 24-inch little GT bike. And we're biking. She loves it. And so, you know, I was like, let's get you something that's going to fit a little bit better. So we got our aggressive hardtail. I think it's the Giant Fathom 1. and it's a 27.5 wheels, and we got her like actual mountain bike shoes, and she's gonna have the plastic pedals, and the pins are in backwards, so they're not quite as sharp, but it's got pins.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Bryce at the bike shop about the e-bike, and they said there's not a lot of jumps here. There's not a lot of places like Skyline to go and just session jumps. The Valley just doesn't have a lot of it. I think it's hard to build jumps out of the raw materials that they have here. Sand.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Then if I could take it to South Mountain or to Halls and just do Boulder Dash 4 or 5 times in a row, or be able to go to South Mountain and do some of these downhills 2-3 times in a row, and just get a feel for that. And it's going to unlock, I think, a technical progression because things here are just much more technical. So I don't know, but I wanted to use it for jumping. So that was a little discouraging.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. Cause like even the desert trails jump lines, they're not sand. They're like a weird composite. I don't know what it doesn't look like clay. It doesn't look like pavement, but it certainly
I don't know what it
feels like a pavement. It's a weird. Yeah. So I don't know how they're building these jumps. It definitely feels like pavement.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's not. I don't know if it's soil tack. I don't know exactly what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it must be really hard to build jumps, and that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, no place is perfect. So, all right. Should we get into our gratitudes? What is your mountain bike gratitude of the week?
My mountain bike gratitude is not mountain bike related, except that it helps us do this mountain bike podcast. And we got a comment from, I forget who it was. You were telling me that people said to you that the podcast sounded so professional. And
yes, well, Jeff said that, and Vaughn said that. A couple of the guys that had ridden with us, ridden with me, or I had ridden with them rather at Hawes. But two guys were like, "Hey, this sounds really professional. Like it sounds really good." And I was like, "Yeah, that's Trail Sage. I mean, he's an expert at this stuff."
When you had the idea of the podcast, I said, "Okay, the cameras really don't matter as much. Well, we got to sound good." And so I did a ton of research on mics because you and I wanted both of us to have the same mic. My gratitude goes to this Sennheiser profile mics that both you and I use. It's got everything that we possibly need. It's an easy setup, and it makes doing this podcast that much better. So if you've enjoyed what we sound like, thank you, Sennheiser. And we are not sponsored yet. Yeah, but Sennheiser.
Yeah.
Hello.
Wait till they hear some of these, the way that some of these hump jokes sound on their equipment. They're going to be like, we got to sign these guys. Yeah. Marketing team, you got to hear this. You got to hear these hump jokes on our microphone. We found our guys. These are our guys. We need to get involved in this podcast.
Yeah.
Immediately. Yes. You're welcome, Sennheiser.
You're welcome.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Yes, and thank you everybody for listening, and the equipment that we use, and everything that we do to make the podcast, and everyone that shares the podcast, and the growth of the podcast, and the stoke, and talking into these microphones for a couple hours a week, and then Sage has to edit it down to an hour.
Well, what's your gratitude?
My gratitude is absolutely mountain bike related. And in Pennsylvania, I have my bike, and I have my helmet, and I have the Troy Lee A3 helmet. And one of my Black Friday purchases here in Arizona, I had an older helmet that fit okay. But it was always getting crooked. And I'm going down all this chunk and all this gnar, and I would feel it like starting to like impede on my vision a little bit.
Yeah.
So I went and I bought myself the Troy Lee A3 because that helmet fits me so well. It just like it fits perfectly. I don't notice it. It's really easy to adjust the bow in the back. And I know there's a lot of good helmets out there. I love the Troy Lee A3. And as far as my half shell is concerned, that's my helmet for now. If they come out with an A4, I'd be interested. I did learn the hard way in Arizona. You don't get a dark helmet. You don't get a black helmet. You want to have something that's white or light or gray or, a light color. When I first got out here, I had a black helmet that I had just brought from Pennsylvania. And I was like, oh, this thing's a freaking heat sink. Nothing screams not from Arizona more than a black helmet.
A black helmet, yeah.
Yeah. Like,
people are like, is that flesh burning? What's going on?
Yeah. I can actually hear your skin cooking. I can hear your head cooking.
Yeah. Talk about smell tests, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Ride Life 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. What's your favorite helmet? What's your favorite half shell helmet? Does it matter? And fans of the Troy Lee A3, but what else is out there that everyone really likes? So always good to get feedback in the comments. So, all right. Tip of the week.
My mountain bike tip, and this is absolutely goofy, and I absolutely thought of you, Dan. I'm taking the fat bike out today. Yes, at Mount Penn.
Can't wait to hear this.
And
I'm a little nervous.
The shifting, no, it's nothing bad, but it totally reminded me of you. I'm riding around and the shifting is all wonky. I'm sitting here rotating the barrel. Nothing's working. I'm just going through this, like, why is this shifting like this? I get off my bike. I'm looking at everything.
I know it. I know what it is.
I'm adjusting the high-low screw, get back on the bike. It's still shifting like crazy. And I'm like, ugh. So I get to the part of my ride where I was at Mount Penn to do a bike check video. So I set my bike up against the tree and I'm talking about the drivetrain. I look at the skewer. It's completely loose. The skewer is like, you could literally pull the back tire off of the thing. The mountain bike tip is the wheel was loose. Yes, so because the skewer,
you mean
the thru-axle.
You mean the thru-axle that goes into the wheel, that holds the wheel to the frame, was loose. So all your shifting issues, everything that you had been like lamenting and trying to fix with all these micro adjustments, was just because your wheel was loose.
Right. Yeah. And how many times? Yes. How many times have we done that? And we're just like, first thing you check that derailleur screw, check the thru-axle. That's it. Before you start messing with the high-low screws, which are the little screws on your derailleur, before you start adjusting the barrel, just get off the bike.
Yeah.
Check the first screw is the derailleur screw. So the screw that holds the derailleur to the hanger. Yes. So the hanger is the piece that attaches to the frame. Or if you have one that combines with the thru-axle, check the thru-axle, make sure it's tight. It's like, duh.
Yeah.
That's my mountain
bike.
Check that
your back wheel is tight. All your wheels should be tight. That's like
all
very
your
important.
Wheels should be tight. That's number one.
But I had my 2018 Specialized Stump Jumper. Like it had a thing where the derailleur would just come loose all the time. So the derailleur is the whole mechanism that does all the shifting, and the whole thing would loosen from the frame. And I mean, I must have done it a dozen times where the shifting starts to get wonky, and I'm making all these adjustments, and then I'm like, oh wait. Let's make sure the derailleur's on tight. And it wasn't. I mean, it happens so many times. I put thread lock on that thing. I tried everything. It's still just always loosened. And finally it got to the point where when shifting, I finally remembered when shifting was wonky, just make sure that the derailleur is on tight. And certainly that, your wheel is on tight. So now, did you have it all knocked out of whack because you had done all that work?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, once I did that, I was
change everything back to default settings.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I got it working again. It skips a little bit, but man, I just one of those moments where you're like, you son of a gun, you knew better. You knew better.
Yeah.
But you didn't.
Yeah. What a pain in the arse. That's a good tip.
Really
that is a really good one. Yes. Listeners, remember that. Remember that next time your shifting goes weird. Just check some bolts first. And take a deep breath. Yeah. It's because nothing's as frustrating as when your bike's not staying in gear and it's skipping gears or it's falling off of the cassette. Either way.
Oh God.
If it's falling into the wheel or if it's falling all the way off, and it's very frustrating. So take a deep breath and just check some bolts first. And hopefully that's all it is. All right. Well, if you're still listening, you are definitely one of us. You love mountain biking. We appreciate you. Gratitude. Rate and subscribe on your podcast players. Rate and subscribe on YouTube. Gives us a thumbs up. Watch until the end. That really helps the algorithm. And comments are fantastic. And we get the conversation going, and it also helps the algorithm. And tell your friends. Hey, everybody, have a fantastic week. Thank you for listening. Happy Thanksgiving. Ride and laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.